The rain had been falling for hours, heavy and relentless, turning the streets into cold rivers and the night into something that felt darker than usual. Thomas Hale, a single father battling to hold his collapsing world together, pushed his beat-up grocery cart toward the dimly lit alley behind the diner. Inside the cart sat a plastic bag containing the last meal he could afford for his young daughter, a loaf of bread, 2 apples, and a can of soup. His wallet held only a single $10 bill, crumpled, damp, and painfully symbolic of how deeply he had fallen. But then, in that same alley, he saw something that stopped him. A massive figure slumped against the brick wall, drenched, trembling, and gasping for breath. The tattoos, the leather vest, the patched insignia of the notorious Hell's Angels. Everything told Thomas to walk away. Everything told him this man lived a life far more dangerous than his own. Yet in that moment, the biker looked less like a threat and more like a dying human being. And Thomas, who had lost so much already, couldn't turn away from suffering. He knelt beside the biker, pulled off his own jacket, pressed it over the man's shaking shoulders, and made the decision that would change his life forever. He spent his very last $10 calling an ambulance for a stranger who might never thank him. If you believe even small kindness can change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Thomas didn't know the biker's name. He didn't know his story. He didn't even stay to see the ambulance arrive. He simply whispered, "You'll be okay," and hurried home through the rain, praying his daughter wouldn't wake up hungry. That night, he sat in the dim room of their tiny apartment, watching his daughter, Lily, sleep peacefully with her small hand clutching the stuffed bear he'd gotten her from a thrift shop. He felt a crushing weight in his chest, guilt for not having more, fear for the days ahead, and a quiet ache of hopelessness that had been building for years. His wife had passed away 3 winters ago, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. Bills piled up, jobs came and went, and life kept dealing blows he could no longer shield himself from. Yet he always told Lily that the world was still full of good, no matter how dark life became. He just wasn't sure he believed it anymore. The next morning began like any other, cold, uncertain, and heavy. Thomas put on his worn-out boots, kissed Lily's forehead, and walked her to school. He didn't tell her that he had no money left for dinner. He didn't tell her that he might lose his job at the construction site after missing another shift due to car troubles. He didn't tell her that he felt like he was quietly drowning while trying to smile for her sake. As he walked back toward home, he heard something strange, an echo, a low rumble like a storm rolling in not from the sky but from the road. The sound grew louder and louder and louder. He turned the corner and froze. The entire street seemed to vibrate beneath the thunderous arrival of motorcycles. Not 5, not 10, but what looked like 200 massive, roaring bikes, chrome glinting in the morning light, engines growling in perfect unison. They came like an unstoppable army, filling the road, forming a wall of leather, steel, and power. People stepped out of their homes in shock, staring from sidewalks and porches. Bikers in black leather jackets, bikers with scars and tattoos, bikers who looked like they belonged on wanted posters rather than in a quiet neighborhood. They moved with a certainty, a purpose, forming lines like guardians on a mission. And then one of them, a tall, broad man with a braided beard and a leather vest covered in patches, stepped forward and lifted his hand. All the engines went silent at once. The sudden quiet was deafening. Thomas stood frozen on the sidewalk, feeling like he had accidentally stepped into a movie he didn't belong in. The biker with the braided beard walked toward him. Every eye turned to follow. Thomas swallowed hard. He had never felt so small. The man stopped in front of him, looked him up and down, and then, unexpectedly, smiled. "You the guy who saved Reaper?" Thomas blinked. I don't know who that is," the man chuckled. "Big biker, 6'4", tattoos like a comic book villain. Found half dead in an alley last night?" Thomas felt his breath catch. I just called an ambulance. Anyone would have." "No," the man said softly, but with a gravity that made Thomas's stomach twist. "No, they wouldn't have." The crowd of bikers murmured behind him, every one of them listening. The biker continued, "Reaper's one of us, a brother, a man who's taken bullets, spills, and scars you couldn't dream of. But last night, no one stopped for him. People crossed the street to avoid him. Except you." Thomas shrugged awkwardly. "I just did what I could." The man stepped aside, revealing another figure slowly moving forward, a huge, intimidating biker with a shaved head and arms wrapped in bandages. His face still carried the pale exhaustion of someone who had nearly died. Reaper. But he wasn't the monster his appearance suggested. His eyes were strangely soft as he approached Thomas. "You saved my life," Reaper rasped, his voice deep but sincere. "And I heard you spent your last $10 on the ambulance." Thomas shook his head. "It wasn't much. Reaper cut him off. "It was everything you had. That's what makes it big." Behind him, a biker rolled forward, a large matte black motorcycle with red detailing and chrome edges that gleamed like polished silver. It was majestic, powerful, and clearly worth more than everything Thomas owned. Reaper pointed at it. "This is for you." Thomas stared, stunned. I don't understand." Another biker stepped forward. "You helped a man when he was down, now we help you." The braided beard biker crossed his arms. "Reaper told us about your situation, about the bills, the car you can't afford to fix, the job you might lose." Thomas's heart dropped. "How did you?" Reaper smirked. "We're bikers, man. We find things out." They all laughed, but it wasn't mocking. It felt warm, human, surprising. Reaper placed a large envelope in Thomas's hands. It was thick, far too thick for anything simple. "That," Reaper said, "is $10,000. Every biker here chipped in. You saved one of us. Now all of us are saving you." Thomas felt dizzy, his vision blurred. He shook his head in disbelief. "I can't take this. I don't deserve—" "Yes," Reaper growled gently, gripping Thomas's shoulder with a huge warm hand. "You do. Because kindness like yours, we don't see it much. You gave without expecting anything. Now let us return the favor." The braided beard man gestured behind the crowd. "Follow us." Confused, overwhelmed, trembling, Thomas walked as the sea of bikers parted. Behind them, parked on the grass, was a small white car. Clean, polished, with a huge red bow stretched across the hood. "A reliable car for you and your daughter," one of the women bikers said, stepping forward with a smile. "Reaper told us you walk miles every day." "Not anymore." Thomas felt his knees weaken. He covered his mouth with his trembling hand, trying to contain the tidal wave of emotion. Tears slipped down despite his attempt to hold them back. Reaper nodded toward the bikers. Brothers. Sisters. Every biker lifted their fist in solidarity. Thomas couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, and then, from behind the crowd, came a small gasp. Lily. She had run out after seeing the bikes from the schoolyard fence. School staff had followed her, thinking something dangerous was happening. But Lily wasn't afraid. She ran straight to her father, clinging to his leg. "Daddy, what's happening?" Thomas knelt, wrapping her tightly in his arms, still shaking with disbelief. Reaper crouched down, his intimidating form becoming softer. "Hey, little one. Your dad is a hero. That's what's happening." Thomas's tears fell freely now. Reaper stood and lifted his chin. "Brothers, sisters, what do we say to the man who saved one of our own?" 200 voices roared as one, "Respect." It echoed through the town like thunder. And the man who had felt invisible for years suddenly became someone seen, valued, honored. From that day forward, Thomas's life transformed. The car allowed him to keep his job, then get promoted. The money paid the overdue bills, medical visits for Lily, and bought a little breathing room he had long forgotten was possible. The bikers visited, checked on him, brought gifts during holidays, treated Lily like a niece of the Hells Angels, protected, respected, cherished. But more than the material gifts, something deeper changed in Thomas. For the first time in years, he believed again in the goodness of the world. He believed kindness mattered. He believed that even the smallest act could cause ripples larger than imagination. And whenever he walked past that alley where he found Reaper, he offered a quiet prayer of gratitude, not for the rewards he received, but for the reminder that humanity, in all its rough edges and unexpected forms, still carried a heart. Because sometimes, the most unlikely hands bring the greatest miracles. If this story touched your heart, or restored your faith in kindness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful stories to you. Before you go, drop a comment below. Kindness always comes back.